There is so much to look forward to with these games. But as we mentioned earlier, a coordinated arson attack targeting high-speed rail lines threatened to cast a shadow over the games and the opening ceremony in particular. For a look at what it would take to secure an event of this scale, we're joined by Javed Ali in Washington. Javed is a former FBI officer and former White House counterterrorism official. He's currently an associate professor of practice at the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan. Javed, thank you so much for making time for us this evening.
Jacqueline, thank you for having me.
So it really struck me how the CEO of the French National Rail Company said that this was a premeditated, calculated attack, a coordinated attack that indicates a desire to seriously harm the French people. How do you think that this level of an attack could happen when we know there has been just such a focus on security for these games and for the opening ceremony itself?
Well, we don't have all the facts yet, but as the French CEO said and other media reporting has indicated over the past 12 plus hours, that this was deliberate, it was coordinated, and it appears to be, at a minimum, disruptive. Whether it was actually designed to cause casualties, again, that hasn't been clear. And thankfully, it didn't. And whoever is behind this, and again, that's also another set of questions on that, sort of begs the question of what were they intending to do, and did they really understand the security sort of features that have gone into the Olympics and designed this plot to skirt around them? Because obviously these were all launched about 100 miles. Each train was departing about 100 miles from downtown Paris. So.
Yeah, so they got around the setups, the precautions that had been taken from a security standpoint. When you're looking at this through that security lens at an event like this, this happens, and then hours later, this opening ceremony needed to kick off. What do you think happened between the time of the attacks and that opening ceremony starting for officials to be confident in the security of that ceremony?
I would have to assume that they further intensified the existing security posture in the immediate area, and certainly when it came to the opening ceremony, they may have had to bring in more French military or other law enforcement and created what are probably arrayed as these concentric rings of security, and you want to have the tightest ring and the most secure ring. In the middle of that most desired event you're trying to protect, or series of events, and you build your layers of security around that. But as I've said now in a couple interviews, you're never going to have 100% security, no matter what the threat perspective looks like. And here in the United States, going back 2 weeks ago now with the shooting of President Trump, I mean, that certainly exposed vulnerabilities in the U.S. system, even when it comes to these campaign rallies. That wasn't the Olympics. Look at the mass disruptions from the IT software glitch over the weekend. So now we have to think about security in both the physical world and the virtual worlds. And again, you're never going to be 100% airtight on everything.
The opening ceremony itself, I mean, it was really incredible. We had it live here on the network. When you're setting up for an event like that, I mean, this stretched 6 kilometers of the Seine. There were athletes floating down the river. There were performers all over the place. When you're looking at something like that, what are you thinking about from a security perspective? How much of a challenge do you think this was?
Oh, it's an enormous challenge because it's out in the open, as you mentioned. But that being said, there's so much security that was very likely baked into the profile to keep that opening ceremony safe. Some of it was probably visible from what you could just see from your, watching it, whether on your television or on your phone or your computer. But there was probably a lot of security that was not visible as well. And again, either in the virtual domain or in the physical domain, that had those types of resources or capabilities been needed in an instant or in reaction to something terrible happening, then that would have appeared. So that's what the security planning for these types of events, certainly Olympic events, is like. It takes years to put a security plan together, and then no good plan actually survives contact with reality. That's kind of one of the maxims of this kind of world. And so you have to keep the plan flexible, nimble, be able to shift resources quickly in one direction or another. And I'm sure the French are even on a higher sort of alert posture now because of what happened with the arson attacks on the trains.
And it looked like it went smoothly. I mean, as far as we know, the ceremony was incredible. A bit of rain, quite a bit of rain, but it went on, and it didn't seem like there were any concerns from a security standpoint that disrupted things. I wonder. The performers that we saw, there were many that were on rooftops, in areas that were sort of lining the River Seine. And I wonder, from a strategic standpoint, would that help? You're covering more ground, so maybe you don't have to worry so much about those areas as being, potentially hiding, a nefarious person instead.
Well, I mean, every one of those vantage points that was at least potentially uncovered or not, didn't have a strong sort of security blanket around it, there's a vulnerability there. Now, thankfully, nothing happened and nothing was exploited, but that is the challenge with having these large-scale events, and certainly when you're holding them out in the open, is that there's only so much security you can have, and all it takes is one bad actor to exploit something. And that is the case of what happened, again, not Olympics, but in the case of the campaign rally 2 weeks ago here in the United States with the shooting of Donald Trump. Let's hope that nothing like that happens over the next few weeks in Paris. But all it would take is one person to try and do something to change the narrative on, are the Olympics safe or not?
Javed, I really appreciate you jumping on with us. Thanks so much for your insights.
All right, thank you.
That is former FBI officer and White House counterterrorism official Javed Ali, and he joined us from Washington.